My life felt like a dream come true, you know? One of those dreams where you're afraid to wake up because everything is just too perfect. I was about to marry Marcus, and honey, this man was everything I had pictured for years. The father of my future children, my life partner, my safest place to land. Everything was prepared with so much care. The flowers, the menu, the music. Even the small details that only the two of us would understand and smile about. My mama cried tears of pure joy as I looked at myself in that mirror, dressed in my white gown, thinking that I had finally found true happiness. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that this wedding, which was supposed to seal our love story, would actually mark the beginning of my greatest tragedy. From the very start, I knew I couldn't walk down that aisle without my best friend, Keisha Monroe, by my side. She was more than just a friend to me. She was my soul sister, my confidant, the only person who knew every corner of my heart. Every secret, every dream, every fear. That's why I chose her as my maid of honor without even thinking twice. Nobody questioned my decision either. Everyone knew how deep our connection ran. She smiled with what looked like genuine tenderness as she helped me with my veil and made sure everything was absolutely perfect. What I didn't know, what I couldn't see, was that behind those sweet eyes, a dark secret was hiding. A secret that would destroy my life from the inside out. We wanted an intimate wedding, away from all the noise and rush of city life. That's why we chose this elegant estate in the countryside of North Carolina, surrounded by these beautiful old oak trees and blooming gardens everywhere you looked. The place was magical, with this stately brick manor, cozy rooms, and a hall with these high ceilings and enormous windows that let in the warm golden light of the setting sun. There, surrounded by our families and closest friends, we dreamed of celebrating our love and starting this new life together. Nothing seemed out of place. Everything felt harmonious, like it was meant to be. But that same place would soon witness the most painful collapse of my existence. We had rented the entire estate for the long weekend so that our parents and the wedding party could stay the night before and after the wedding. We wanted it to be more than just an event, you understand? We wanted it to be a moment of togetherness, shared laughter, joyful anticipation, building memories. The night before the wedding, we all had dinner together on this beautiful patio lit up with string lights, soft jazz playing in the background, glasses of wine in our hands. Marcus seemed calm, even affectionate, and Keisha never left my side, just like always. Nobody suspected that behind all that calm, a storm was brewing that would change all our lives forever. That night, I went to bed with my heart so full of hope, mentally replaying every moment of the day, convinced that I had finally found my happiness. I fell asleep late, feeling nervous but happy, picturing the moment I would walk toward Marcus in my white dress. The next morning, those first rays of sun came through the window, and I woke up with an energy I hadn't felt since I was a little girl. Keisha was the first person to enter my room, bringing me breakfast with a smile that I now remember as nothing but a mask. I felt so grateful, so excited, so secure. I couldn't have known that nothing was real anymore. When it was time, my daddy took my arm and we walked toward the garden where everyone was waiting for us. The soft sound of a string quartet, white rose petals on the ground, the tearful eyes of our loved ones. Everything looked like it came straight out of a storybook. Marcus was waiting for me at the end of that aisle with glistening eyes and that smile that had made me fall in love with him so many times before. I walked toward him, holding back my tears, convinced that I was taking the most important and beautiful step of my life. Nobody could have seen it. Nobody could have known that my "I do" would actually be the beginning of my greatest heartbreak. When the officiant asked if we accepted to join our lives, I didn't hesitate for even a second. My voice was shaky but firm as I said, "I do," my eyes full of love as I looked at Marcus. He also said, "I do," with a smile, though for just a moment I thought his expression dimmed right after he said it. I just figured it was nerves. We all feel that little bit of anxiety when we take such a big step, right? We kissed to the sound of applause, surrounded by white flowers and tears of emotion. In that instant, I believed it was all worth it. That our love was real, solid, unbreakable. The celebration was exactly as we had imagined. Intimate, elegant, full of joy. We ate under a starry sky with soft R&B playing in the background and candles lit at every table. There were moments of laughter, old stories being told, hugs that seemed so sincere, as if we were all part of something eternal. Marcus talked to our guests and laughed, but there was something distant in the way he looked at me. I didn't want to think too much about it. I thought he was just tired from all the planning and stress, so I decided to just enjoy every second. My father stood up, all emotional, to toast our union. He spoke about how proud he was of me and how he had watched our love grow from the beginning. Everyone applauded, and Marcus raised his glass with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, as if he were forcing the emotion. I looked at him, trying to find that usual spark, that warmth, but all I found was this strange silence in his gaze. I thought that maybe I was just being too sensitive, that I shouldn't look for problems where there weren't any. But deep down, something inside of me was starting to crack, even though I didn't know it yet. After the party wound down, we went up to the bridal suite together. This warm and elegant space we had decorated with fresh flowers and candles to make it unforgettable. My heart was pounding, this mix of excitement and nerves as I thought about how special this night, our first as husband and wife, would be. I closed the door softly, wanting to hold on to the intimate moment, believing we were about to seal our story with love. Marcus placed his watch on the nightstand, took off his shoes without looking at me, and sighed this heavy, tired sigh. I went to hug him, to hold him close, and that's when I heard it. "I'm tired," he said, not even looking at me. His tone was dry and flat, as if I wasn't even there in the room with him. I stood frozen, trying to figure out if it was some kind of joke, if something had happened that I didn't see. But his face was serious, distant, completely devoid of any emotion or desire. He turned his back to me, unbuttoned his shirt, and went straight to the twin bed that was sitting in the corner of the room. He didn't say goodnight, didn't turn around. He just turned off the light, leaving the room in a silence that hurt more than any yelling ever could. I sat on the edge of that marriage bed, not knowing what to do with my body or my thoughts, feeling completely invisible on what was supposed to be the most important night of my life. I waited for what felt like endless minutes for a gesture, a word, some kind of explanation. But all I got was the sound of his quiet breathing from the other side of the room. I slowly lay down on that bed, unable to hold back the tears, trying not to make a sound so I wouldn't seem pathetic. The room smelled of fresh roses, but inside my chest, everything was withering and dying. And that's how I spent my first night as a wife. Alone. Confused. With a broken soul. I don't know how long I stayed awake, just staring at that ceiling, wishing it was all a nightmare. That Marcus would come over and hug me by surprise, tell me he was just playing some cruel joke. But the hours passed, the silence was absolute, and his body remained still in that twin bed, as far from me as if we were two complete strangers. At some point, exhaustion won out and I closed my eyes. But I couldn't have been asleep for more than 30 minutes when this muffled sound woke me up with a jolt. I sat up, my heart racing, confused, trying to figure out where it was coming from. I turned my head and Marcus's bed was empty. The sheets were pulled back, but he was gone. I slowly got up, my bare feet on the cold hardwood floor, feeling this knot in my stomach that I couldn't explain. I walked to the door, opened it carefully, and heard the sound again. It was this short, stifled groan, as if someone was trying desperately not to make noise. The hallway was dark, only lit by this faint light coming from a room at the end of the corridor. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to convince myself that maybe it was a movie, a voice on the TV, anything logical. But something inside me already knew. I already knew that I was about to hear what I should never have heard. I forced myself to move forward, still without making a sound. And that's when I remembered that the room at the end of the hall belonged to my mother-in-law, Marcus's mother. She had said at the end of dinner that she was feeling sick and had to drive into town to get some medicine. She hadn't been back since, and nobody seemed to have worried about her absence. My mind began to piece together the impossible, but my heart refused to believe it. What was Marcus doing in there? In the middle of the night? In his mother's room, which was supposed to be empty? I took one more step. The groans continued, low and urgent. I moved down that hallway with a pounding heart and cold sweat running down my back, trying to silence every step so I wouldn't alert whoever was inside. It wasn't just the noise that was bothering me anymore. It was the fact that Marcus wasn't in our room. On our wedding night. And at that very moment, in that part of the house, something inside me started connecting loose pieces. Details I had ignored before. Looks that hadn't seemed important at the time. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to imagine it. But my feet already knew where they were going, and my soul had a premonition. It was about to shatter into a million pieces. I stopped right in front of the door that belonged to my mother-in-law. The same door that was supposed to be empty that night. And I felt my hands shaking uncontrollably. From inside, the groans continued, lower now, as if someone was holding their breath. As if they knew someone was listening on the other side. I swallowed hard and put my ear to the wood, holding my breath for a moment so I could hear more clearly. A soft creak of the bed. A muffled sigh. And then a woman's voice, breathy and urgent. I closed my eyes tightly, wishing with everything in me that I was wrong. But I recognized it instantly. There was no doubt in my mind. It was Keisha. Her voice was unmistakable. Those broken whispers, that mix of pleasure and urgency, blended with these little laughs that I had heard so many times in confidence over the years. We had laughed together about boys, about life, about everything. I felt this sharp blow to my chest as if someone had knocked me to the ground without any warning. I leaned against the wall, dazed, not knowing whether to scream, run, or just pass out right there in that hallway. Everything we had shared. All our secrets. Those long teenage talks that lasted until 3 a.m. The promises of loyalty we had made to each other. All of it came crashing down with that sound coming from behind that door. And the worst part? The worst was yet to come. And then I heard his voice. Marcus's deep, unmistakable voice, whispering Keisha's name between these low gasps that left absolutely no room for doubt. I felt the ground disappear from under my feet. The air grew thick and I couldn't breathe. It was the voice of my husband. The man who just hours ago had promised me eternal love in front of everyone we knew and cared about. And now he was there in the middle of the night, sharing the bed he had refused to share with me, with my best friend. The tears came without me being able to stop them. But I didn't make a single sound. I rested my forehead against that wall, shaking, feeling smaller than I had ever felt in my entire life. It was hard to understand how this could be happening. On my wedding night. In the house where I believed everything beautiful was just beginning. Every word, every groan, every whispered name was a dagger straight to my soul. And still I didn't move. I decided to stay there, planted right in front of that door without making a sound, waiting for them to come out so I could face them both. I needed to see their faces. Hear whatever pathetic excuses they would try to give me. Confirm with my own eyes what I had already heard with my own ears. Time became eternal. Every minute felt like torture and my heart beat against my chest with this wild, painful force. I closed my eyes, opened them, and I was still standing there. I didn't leave. I couldn't leave. The door opened suddenly and Marcus came out. His shirt was unbuttoned, his belt askew, running his hands through his hair like he didn't expect to find anyone standing there. When he saw me standing right in front of him, he froze for a second. His eyes went wide and guilt was tattooed all over his face. He didn't say anything at first. He just turned around as if looking for an explanation for his own betrayal inside that room. And then she appeared. Keisha came out behind him. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared and running down her face, her dress wrinkled and crooked, holding her heels in her hand. When she saw me standing there, she froze too. Rooted to the spot like she had seen a ghost. Unable to pretend, unable to run, unable to even hold my gaze. I didn't need any more proof. The image of the two of them standing there together in that silence, with guilt written all over their bodies, spoke louder than 1,000 words ever could. And still I dared to ask why. I stood in front of them without moving an inch, blocking their path, my body tense and my voice broken by anger and pain. I asked them how they could have done this. How they had the cold-bloodedness to betray me on my wedding night of all nights. Marcus didn't know where to look. Keisha didn't even try to pretend to be surprised or innocent. Silence was their first response, as if they expected me to just step aside and walk away without saying anything. But I didn't move. I didn't stay silent. I didn't give them that easy way out. Then Marcus raised his voice, all nervous and defensive, and told me I was wrong. That nothing had happened. That he had only been helping Keisha pick up some things his mother had left in the room. His lie was so clumsy, so absurd, that for a moment it hurt even more than the actual betrayal. Keisha didn't say a word. She just looked down at the floor while he kept inventing excuses, each one more fragile and pathetic than the last. He looked at me as if I was the one losing control, as if I was being irrational. But there was no more room for his theater. For his lies. I told him I had heard everything. Every whisper. Every groan. Every word they should never have shared between them. I told him he didn't need to say anything else, that his silence had already said it all. Then Marcus dropped his shoulders, closed his eyes, and finally admitted it. His voice was low, like he no longer had the strength to keep up the charade. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't explain why he did it. He just said he had been confused for a while, as if that somehow justified his betrayal. As if confusion was an excuse for destroying someone. Keisha burst into tears as soon as she heard his confession. She covered her face with her hands and began to repeat over and over that she was sorry. That she hadn't wanted to hurt me. That she didn't know how things had gotten to that point. Her crying didn't move me. Not one bit. It was too late for tears. Too late for regrets. For years she was the person I trusted most in this world. And she had stabbed me in the back without a moment's hesitation. She was no longer my friend. She wasn't even a stranger. She was a threat, a traitor. And standing in front of me was just an empty, hollow woman. I felt something inside me break into a million pieces. Something that had no shape or name but that held everything I was. My legs were shaking. My chest was burning. And I could barely breathe, as if the air itself was betraying me just like they had. I didn't cry anymore. There were no tears left. Only this mute, dry rage that consumed me from within. My wedding had turned into a nightmare, and I was no longer the same person I had been just hours before. I didn't say anything else to them. I went back to the room, gathered my things without looking at anyone, and went down those stairs. My gown was still on. My face was burning. My soul was in pieces. Nobody followed me. Nobody tried to stop me. I walked across that garden barefoot, ignoring the cold of the early morning and the fog that was beginning to cover the ground. I just wanted to get away. To disappear. To breathe air that didn't smell like lies and betrayal. And so I left. Without a goodbye. Without an explanation. With a broken heart but my dignity still intact. I walked for hours with no destination, down these empty country roads. My dress was dragging in the dirt and my makeup was just a sad shadow under my eyes. No cars passed by. Nobody asked if I was okay. And in a way, I was grateful that the world just kept turning without knowing about my tragedy. I sat on a bench next to this dry field, shivering from the cold, replaying what I had heard and seen over and over again in my mind. I didn't understand when everything had gone so wrong. It was supposed to be my wedding night, and here I was, alone, broken, and completely lost. When the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, I retraced my steps. Guided more by exhaustion than by any conscious decision. The estate was still quiet, sleeping under the faint light of early morning, as if nothing had happened. As if my world hadn't just fallen apart. I entered through the back door without making a sound, feeling like an intruder in a place that just hours before had been the scene of my happiness. I didn't know what I was going to do, but something inside me needed to find closure. I couldn't just leave without telling the truth. The dining room was filled with soft voices, plates of fruit, coffee mugs, and the smiles of people who didn't know. As if everything were continuing its natural course. My parents, my in-laws, the wedding party. Everyone was chatting casually, oblivious to what had happened in the darkness. I stood watching from the doorway, feeling this cold anger grow inside me at all the normalcy. At all the pretending. Nobody had asked about me. Nobody seemed to have even noticed my absence. I quietly wiped my face, walked in with my head up and asked for everyone's attention. With a firm voice, calmer than I felt inside, I asked everyone to gather in the main living room. I didn't want any drama. Didn't want to beat around the bush. I had something to say and I wasn't going to wait any longer. My father looked at me with this worried expression. My mama stood up immediately and one by one, everyone came in, confused and expectant. I didn't see Marcus or Keisha among them, and that in itself said everything. Confirmed everything. As everyone took their seats, my eyes scanned the room looking for them, hoping deep down for one last cowardly appearance. But neither Marcus nor Keisha was there. They hadn't dared to show their faces, and their absence confirmed everything without the need for a single word more. My parents realized it right away and looked at me with unease, as if they already knew that what I was about to say wasn't going to be minor. Wasn't going to be small. And then, without my voice shaking, I spoke. I thanked them for being with me on what should have been the happiest day of my life. And then, without hesitation, without sugarcoating it, I told them the truth. I said I had discovered Marcus and Keisha together in his mother's room. On my wedding night. Betraying me without shame or regret. I heard murmurs. Saw furrowed brows and tense faces. Felt their disbelief wash over the room. But my voice didn't break because for the first time in hours I felt like I was regaining control. Silence took over the room like a wave that sweeps away everything in its path, and nobody knew how to react at first. My mama covered her mouth with her hand. My in-laws looked down as if they couldn't bear the weight of the shame. Some people stood up. Others looked at me as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. But nobody said it wasn't true. Nobody tried to defend them. Because deep down, everyone knew that I was not capable of lying about something like this. With a clear voice, I announced that I intended to annul the marriage. That I wanted nothing to do with Marcus or Keisha ever again. And that I hoped nobody would try to convince me otherwise. I didn't want pity. Didn't want sympathy. I just wanted respect for my decision. My father stood up and wrapped me in this silent, firm hug, as if telling me he was proud of me. That he supported me completely. Nobody applauded. Nobody protested. They just let me go. As I left that room, I heard my mother-in-law quietly sobbing and her husband trying to comfort her without success. My own parents had reddened eyes not from sadness but from helplessness. From the anger of not having been able to protect me from this pain. I felt like I was leaving behind not just a wedding, but an entire version of myself that no longer existed. Disappointment hung in the air like a bitter perfume that everyone was breathing in. And in the middle of all that, I left without looking back. I left that estate without looking back, taking nothing with me but my dignity. The same dignity that, despite all the pain, was still standing. That white dress was stained with dirt, tears, and a story that no longer belonged to me. I walked toward the road with my head held high, like someone who survives a storm without losing themselves in it. I didn't answer calls. Didn't respond to messages or questions. That part of my life was dead to me. Gone. When I got back home with my soul still raw and bleeding, I contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce without any delay. I didn't want days of reflection, family advice, or second chances. I wanted to close that chapter with the same firmness with which I had lived it. I handed over the documents and refused to see Marcus again. Not to talk. Not even to sign papers in the same room. I was not the same woman who had said, "I do" at that altar. Weeks later, I was told that Marcus had moved in with Keisha. As if their betrayal had been part of some romantic plan all along. They walked around together as if nothing had happened, as if the harm they had done to me didn't exist. Didn't matter. He thought he had found true love. The kind that justifies the unjustifiable. But life, honey, life sooner or later gives back what you sow. And theirs didn't take long to rot from the inside. A few months later, rumors began to circulate about their constant arguments. Yelling that the neighbors could hear through the walls. Keisha no longer smiled with the same confidence as before, and Marcus spent hours outside the apartment, avoiding her. What had started as this forbidden passion turned into routine distrust and blame. She had destroyed a friendship for a man who didn't know how to love anyone, and he was getting bored again. It was his pattern. His cycle. One day, out of the blue, Marcus disappeared from the apartment he shared with Keisha. Left her with only a note and a lie. He had cheated on her with another woman. A younger one. Someone who didn't know their history. Didn't know what he was capable of. He had repeated his pattern because it was never about love. It was only about ego and whim and selfish desire. Keisha was left alone. Devastated. Without a partner. Without friends. Without any credibility. And she finally really understood what she had done to me. Without Marcus and without anyone's support, Keisha slowly lost the little she had left. Her old friends turned their backs on her. My family never spoke to her again. And her world crumbled like a sandcastle hit by a wave. She tried to find support, but she no longer had anyone to call. Nobody forgets a betrayal like that. And she finally felt what it means to be completely, utterly alone. I, on the other hand, decided to throw myself into my work. To rebuild myself from within without needing revenge or explanations. I opened my eyes. Surrounded myself with new people. And learned to make decisions from a place of calm instead of chaos. I invested in myself. In my business. In my ideas. And little by little, the sadness gave way to clarity. I discovered that I could be happy without depending on anyone else. And for the first time in my life, I began to feel proud of myself. I opened a second boutique, then a third. And in less than a year, my name began to resonate in the industry with respect and admiration. Customers, suppliers, trade magazines. They all wanted to know who this woman was who had built a small empire from nothing. But I wasn't looking for recognition. I was just looking for stability. the independence I had always dreamed of. And it was something I was building with my own 2 hands, and nobody could take that away from me. 3 years passed. My life was different now. Serene. Thought. Without turmoil or open wounds. It no longer hurt to remember that night. On the contrary, it reminded me of how far I had come since then. I had left Marcus, Keisha, and everything they represented behind. I had learned to be alone without feeling empty. And just when I wasn't looking for it, when I had stopped searching, the unexpected happened. It was at a business conference during a presentation with other entrepreneurs that I met him. His name was David Washington, and he spoke with this quiet confidence that wasn't intimidating but captivating. He didn't try to impress me or sell himself. He just listened to me carefully and asked me questions nobody had ever asked before. I didn't feel butterflies. I felt peace. And in that moment, I knew something was about to begin. With David, everything was different from the start. No urgency. No empty promises. Just sincere conversations, mutual respect, and silences that weren't awkward. He didn't pressure me or try to fill any void. He accompanied me naturally, letting me set the pace. Slowly, I began to look forward to his messages. To hear his voice. To miss the way he looked at me. It wasn't this crazy, wild passion. It was something deeper. It was a peace I had never felt with anyone before. At first, I didn't even trust my own happiness. Like I was just waiting for something to go wrong at any moment. But David understood without me having to explain it. He was patient, steadfast, constant. With every gesture, he showed me that you can love without destroying. Without lying. Without using another person as a life raft. I learned to trust again. Not because he asked me to, but because the way he was with me allowed me to. And with that, I finally healed the wound Marcus had left behind. When we officially started dating, everything flowed naturally. No need to hide or justify myself. The people around me noticed the change. I was no longer the woman who just survived. I was the woman who lived. Who thrived. With David, I shared trips, projects, simple moments that became unforgettable. He didn't promise me some fantasy future. He offered me a solid present. And after everything I had been through, that meant so much more. I don't know how, but Marcus found out I was with someone. And soon he sent me a message full of what was supposed to be nostalgia. He said he was happy to know I was doing well. That he sometimes thought about what we lost. That he wished me the best. But between the lines, you could sense the bitterness of someone who can't stand to see the person they thought they destroyed be happy and whole. I didn't respond. I owed nothing to the man who took everything from me and still couldn't break me. One afternoon, without any warning, Marcus showed up at the door of my boutique. Looking thinner. His eyes dull. His clothes looking like life was a heavy weight on his shoulders. He asked for just 5 minutes. Said he needed closure. That he hadn't stopped thinking about me. I looked at him calmly. With no anger. No sadness. It no longer hurt. He no longer mattered. I asked him to talk quickly, that I didn't have time to look back. And he started saying he had made a mistake. That he had been a coward. That he had lost me because he didn't know how to appreciate me. I listened without interrupting. With no emotion on my face. Like someone listening to rainfall from behind a closed window. When he finished, I looked at him firmly and told him he no longer had any power over me. That we no longer existed. That he shouldn't think he could get back what he himself had destroyed. I made it clear that I didn't want to see him again. That there was no room for him in my present or my future. There were no insults. No yelling. Just a firm, cold, final refusal. Marcus tried to smile as if he still believed he could make me waver. But he wasn't the man who once made me tremble. Now he just seemed small. Fern. Irrelevant. I asked him to leave. And this time I was the one who closed the door. Before he left, his eyes filled with this contained frustration, as if he couldn't stand to see that I was happy without him. He mumbled something about how fast I had moved on, as if he wanted to hurt me one last time. But I didn't react. What would have broken me before just slid right off me now. He left without saying goodbye, his shoulders slumped, knowing he had lost me forever. Because there was no going back. Not ever. When silence returned, I sat at my desk and took a deep breath. As if I could finally live my own life without shadows hanging over me. I didn't feel euphoria or triumph. Just the sense of calm. The kind that comes when you know you've closed the toughest chapter without getting your hands dirty. I was no longer a victim. No longer just a survivor. No longer anyone's ex. I was me. Whole. Peaceful. At peace. David came in a few minutes later, not knowing what had happened. But when he saw me, he hugged me without saying a word. He didn't need an explanation. He just offered his presence, his support, his unconditional love. I looked at him and knew that life, with all its wounds and scars, had brought me to him for a reason. By his side, I didn't feel dizzy or off balance. I felt at home. And I finally understood what true love was. I realized that nothing in life is guaranteed. That even the most promised love can break without warning. And that loyalty doesn't always come from the people closest to you. But I also discovered that pain is not the end of anything. It's the beginning of something we can't yet imagine. The ruins of what I once was gave me the perfect ground to rebuild myself. Firmer, freer, stronger. I learned that anyone who survives such a deep betrayal not only recovers but is reborn. And I had been reborn. Today I look back without anger or resentment because the past no longer has a hold on me. I'm still with David. My boutiques continue to grow. And my life is peaceful, bright, and full. I no longer seek approval from others. Don't need to prove anything to anyone. I only need to be true to what I feel and who I am. This is not a story of revenge but of dignity. Because my happy ending didn't come from another person. It came from me. I never ran into Marcus or Keisha again. And I didn't need to. Not because I had forgiven them, but because they no longer occupied any space within me. Sometimes people ask me if I would trust someone again after what I went through, and I always answer the same thing. Not only did I trust again, but I learned to choose better. David didn't come to save me. He found me whole and chose me that way. I know my story isn't unique. There are so many women who have been betrayed, humiliated, or abandoned just when they thought they had it all. But if I want to leave you with anything, it's this. Don't let yourself be broken by someone who doesn't know how to love. Don't stay where there's no respect. The strongest love is the one you have for yourself. Everything else, when it comes, should just be a compliment. Never the center. Today I'm sharing this with you from the comfort of my home, with a cup of tea beside me while David reads a book, and the sun begins to set outside our window. Peace doesn't sound like fireworks. It sounds like shared silence, mutual respect, and knowing that nothing is missing. If you ever thought true love wasn't for you, let me tell you something. It doesn't come when you expect it. It comes when you finally choose yourself. Sometimes when I walk alone through the streets of my neighborhood, I stop in front of a storefront and see my reflection. I no longer look for anyone's approval in my eyes, or for the love I dreamed of as a child. I only look to recognize myself. And there I am. With scars, yes. But also with a strength that I used to confuse with weakness. I learned that pain breaks you, but it also builds you up again. More aware. More you. I keep a box with memories of that day that changed everything. Not to torture myself, but to not forget how far I've come since then. Every dry flower, every photograph, every detail of that dress is a testament to a version of me that died that night and gave way to the woman I am today. I don't throw that box away. I embrace it and respect it. Because without it, I wouldn't be here. David sometimes looks at me as if he doesn't understand how someone so wounded can love with so much calm. And I smile at him, not because the past doesn't hurt, but because it no longer controls me. When love is real, it doesn't demand absurd sacrifices or ask you to make yourself small. True love begins when you decide not to beg for affection. When you know that whoever chooses you must choose you freely, completely, without reservation. And so my story ends. Not with a kiss in the rain or with some fairy tale wedding. It ends with a cup of tea, a hand to hold, and a peaceful heart. Because I understood that the real happy ending isn't finding the perfect man. It's becoming the woman who no longer needs to be saved from anything. Just to live in peace, in truth, and in love. You know, life has this way of teaching us lessons we never asked for. I didn't ask to be betrayed on my wedding night. Didn't ask for my best friend to stab me in the back. Didn't ask for my heart to be shattered into a million pieces by the two people I trusted most in this world. But I did ask myself to survive it. To rise from it. To become something better because of it. And that's what I want you to hear today, whoever you are, wherever you're listening from. Whether you're going through your own betrayal right now, or you're healing from one that happened years ago, or you're just trying to figure out if you can trust again. The answer is yes. You can trust again. But more importantly, you can trust yourself. Because the most important relationship you'll ever have isn't with a spouse or a best friend or anyone else. It's with yourself. And when you learn to honor that relationship, to protect it, to nurture it, everything else falls into place. I'm not going to lie to you and say it doesn't hurt. It does. Sometimes it hurts so bad you think you might not make it through the night. But you will. You'll wake up the next morning and the morning after that, and slowly, slowly the pain will start to fade. And in its place you'll find something you didn't expect. Strength, clarity, peace. You'll find yourself. I look at my life now and I barely recognize the woman I was on that wedding night. That woman was so afraid of being alone that she ignored red flags. She was so desperate to be loved that she forgot to love herself first. But the woman I am now? She knows her worth. She doesn't settle. She doesn't beg. She doesn't stay where she's not valued. Neither should you. If someone shows you through their actions that they don't value you, believe them. Don't wait for them to say it out loud. Don't make excuses for them. Don't convince yourself that things will get better if you just try harder, love harder, give more. Love is not supposed to be hard like that. Real love is supposed to feel like coming home, like breathing, like peace. And if it doesn't feel like that, then it's not real love. Something else. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's the idea of love. But it's not the real thing. The real thing doesn't leave you crying on your wedding night. The real thing doesn't betray you with your best friend. The real thing doesn't make you feel small or invisible or not enough. The real thing sees you, accuses you, honors you. Every single day. I found that with David. But more importantly, I found that with myself first. And that's what I want for you. I want you to find that peace within yourself. That knowing. That unshakable certainty that you are enough just as you are. You don't need someone else to complete you. You're already complete. You just need someone who recognizes that and celebrates it. Someone who adds to your life without trying to define it. Someone who loves you without trying to change you. And until that person comes along, you keep building your life. You keep investing in yourself. You keep showing up for yourself every single day. Because that's what I did. I built my boutiques. I built my business. I built my confidence. I built a life I was proud of. And when David came along, he didn't save me. He didn't rescue me. He didn't complete me. He just walked beside me. As an equal. As a partner. As someone who saw the life I had built and wanted to be part of it, not take it over. That's the difference, you see. Marcus wanted to possess me. David wanted to cherish me. Marcus saw me as something to own. David saw me as someone to honor. And that makes all the difference in the world. So I'm telling you today, from my heart to yours, don't settle. Don't stay in relationships that diminish you. Don't hold on to people who don't know your value. Let them go. Even if it hurts. Even if you're scared. Even if you don't know what comes next. Let them go. Because on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that uncertainty, there's a version of you waiting. A stronger version. A clearer version. A more peaceful version. And that version of you deserves to be met. Deserves to be embraced. Deserves to be celebrated. I'm living proof that you can survive the worst betrayal and come out better on the other side. Not bitter, but better. I'm living proof that you can rebuild your life from scratch and create something even more beautiful than what you lost. I'm living proof that happy endings aren't about finding the right person. They're about becoming the right person. For yourself. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're in the middle of the storm or just coming out of it, I want you to know this. You're going to be okay. More than okay. You're going to be extraordinary. Because you're stronger than you know. Braver than you think. And more valuable than anyone who didn't see it. And one day you're going to look back on this moment, on this pain, on this betrayal, and you're going to thank it. Not because it happened, but because of who you became because it happened. You're going to thank it for showing you what you don't want. For teaching you what you deserve. For pushing you to become the person you were always meant to be. That's what I did. And now I'm here sharing my story with you, hoping it helps someone else who's going through their own dark night. Because we're all connected, you and I. We're all part of this human experience, trying to figure out how to love and be loved without losing ourselves in the process. And the answer I've learned is simple. You love from a full cup, not an empty one. You give from overflow, not from lack. You share your life with someone, not sacrifice it for them. That's the wisdom I want to leave you with today. That's the lesson I learned the hard way, so maybe you won't have to. Love yourself first. Build yourself up. Create a life you're proud of. And then when someone comes along who's worthy of you, you'll know. Because they won't try to tear down what you've built. They'll want to build with you. They won't make you feel small. They'll celebrate how big you are. They won't betray your trust. They'll treasure it like the precious gift it is. And that's when you'll know you found the real thing. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Honest. True. So my question to you today is this. Are you ready to choose yourself? Are you ready to stop waiting for someone else to validate you and start validating yourself? Are you ready to walk away from what's hurting you and walk toward what's healing you? Because I promise you, on the other side of that decision is a life more beautiful than you can imagine right now. A life of peace, of purpose, of genuine love. I'm living it. And you can too. So take that first step today. Whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's ending a relationship that's not serving you. Maybe it's setting a boundary you should have set long ago. Maybe it's just looking in the mirror and telling yourself, I deserve better. Whatever it is, do it. Do it scared. Do it uncertain. Do it imperfectly. But do it. Because you deserve a love story that doesn't break you. You deserve a happy ending that comes from within, not from without. And you deserve to look back on your life one day and say, I chose me. And it made all the difference. That's my story. That's my truth. That's my gift to you today. Now I want to hear from you. Did this story resonate with you? Have you been through something similar? Are you going through it right now? Drop a comment below and let me know which city you're listening from. Let's build a community of women who refuse to settle, who choose themselves, who know their worth. And if this story helped you in any way, if it gave you hope or strength or clarity, consider sending a super thanks to support this channel. It helps me keep bringing you these real, raw, honest stories that we all need to hear. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to reading your comments and connecting with you. On the screen you can see 2 more life stories that I think you'll love. There's so much more on my channel, so many more stories of women who survived, who thrived, who chose themselves. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new story. Hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when I upload. Until next time, remember, you are enough. You are worthy. You are loved. See you in the next life story with love and respect. This is Auntie D reminding you to always choose yourself first.